Because what hurts more than a broken heart? A severed head. What's up, you guys? Do you like my outfit? Yeah, I decided to make a head-to-toe pleather costume in the middle of summer because that's a great idea for maintaining body temperature. So in case you guys didn't know, aside from being a giant book person and a massive Disney lover, I'm also a big, huge musical theater kid. I love the performing arts, I love to sing and dance, and before all of coronavirus happened, I actually had planned to go to New York this summer, both to go to BookCon and to see a couple of different musicals on Broadway, including Six. Obviously, because none of that happened, I decided to take my time during quarantine to do a couple of various little fun projects, one of which was making a cosplay of Anne Boleyn. Now, I'm not a seamstress by any means. I'm almost entirely self-taught. Everything I know I either learned from my grandma, my mom, or from online tutorials or just trial and error. So I wouldn't take this tutorial 100% seriously. It's more just me trying to figure out how to make a very complex costume with materials that I'm buying off of Amazon over the course of 2 months while I'm stuck inside my house. But this was one of the most complicated and difficult costumes I've ever tried to make in my life, and I am so insanely satisfied with my final result. So this video is my step-by-step process of making my Anne Boleyn cosplay from start to finish. I hope you guys enjoy it. So here I am, my playlist of 783 mega sixes and my box of fabric, and I am beginning my work on Anne Boleyn. Part of me wants to film this just to keep myself accountable. I made all of Catherine Howard, and usually I like to keep track of how many hours I put into work of a costume, and I literally have no idea how long Kay Howard took me because I just didn't pay attention. I just started working on it. Yeah, I have a whole costume to show for it, but like, where's my statistics that I can brag about how many hours I spent sitting on my floor uncomfortably cutting out pieces and then crying because I burned myself with a hot glue gun? Like, none. So my fabric came in the mail at like 4 and now it's 5, and I'm already cutting out pattern pieces for the top. I did some sketches of the top here. I have the front of the top kind of sort of patterned out. I think my goal is just going to be to have the basic shape of the top done by the end of the day today. Alright, so these are my 4 pieces for the top. As you can see, if you kind of just look at it all the way across, this is going to be one sleeve, and then these 2 holes are going to make up the other sleeve. And if you connect this end to that end, it would be a full-on crop top situation going on. So update, I am 19 mega sixes in, and I just finished my pattern for the top, so now I'm going to start drafting out the pattern for the skirt. I'm a very tall person, so skirts that are long on regular size girls are very, very short on me, so we're going to have to do a couple trial and error sizes. I'm thinking each skirt panel needs to be 15 inches long, but I'm going to start them off at 18 inches because I know I did Howard at 15 inches and it ended up being short. I'm going to take measurements around my waist where the skirt's going to fall, as well as make a circumference with some math. So I'm going to take the circumference of my waist and then add a couple inches to that so that I can allow for the swishy, bouncy, flaying out part of the skirt. These are all very technical terms that I'm using here. I'm thinking it's going to be either 7 or 8 pieces because I think Howard was 7, but don't quote me on that. I don't have the costume here, so I can't look at it and see what I did. I also can't remember what I did. Alright, so this is my fake leather. I'm going to go ahead and turn it onto its back side and trace out my patterns. I'm going to leave a lot of room around each piece again, so in case I make any mistakes, I can make it smaller if needed. I'm going to go ahead and just take some regular old chalk and just trace it out and then cut out each piece. So here's my pieces for my top all traced out. So the next thing you want to do is actually pin all your pieces together and try on the entire garment. So here you see I've lined up the edges. Here was that middle center piece. Here are the 2 curved pieces. You pin along these edges and along the top. So these are the 2 back pieces, and then again across the top and on the outside. And then once you turn it inside out, you will have the basic shape of your top. I'm gonna have to add the little shoulder pieces and the bottom ruffle later. Next, I'm gonna have to cut out each of the individual squares and put the green lining underneath. Alright, so this morning I'm gonna go ahead and cut out my skirt panels. So I have this pattern piece. Again, I'm approximating it's gonna be 7 panels due to my math, but of course I haven't taken actual math classes in like 5 years. So it's gonna be a little trial and error. So here is my skirt. All the panels are cut out. It's definitely more of a Seymour length than a Boleyn length, but again, that was on purpose, so I can cut it shorter if I want to. It did end up being 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 panels, and I'm gonna go ahead and unpin it and get to shortening length. There's my progress so far. It has a whole little shape. Alright, now my goal for the afternoon is to make sure I get these little cuts done, and then I'm going to start cutting out the squares on every single inch of these pieces. I I feel like I'm gonna drive myself absolutely insane with all these squares because I'll have to do the same exact thing to every single panel on the skirt. So it's gonna be a lot of just squares over and over and over again. So as you can see, I've drawn like a whole bunch of different little squares and then erased them. I've decided that each square is gonna be 1.5 inches on each side, and then they're gonna be separated by 1 inch. And after a bunch of redraws and tries, I finally have a square pattern that I'm pretty satisfied with. So I have this board down so I don't cut my floor. I'm gonna go in with my X-Acto knife and start cutting these squares out. And I'm gonna have these tiny little leather squares all over my house for the rest of the day. Alright, now with all the squares cut out, the next thing to do is to take the green vinyl and put it underneath so then it ends up looking a little bit like this. Line it up and basically sew around each square. And here are all the pieces with the green vinyl underneath. So I'll have to sew each one around each of the squares and then sew the actual top back together to see how it actually turned out. And there she is. All of the vinyl pieces, as you can see, are very kind of sloppily sewn in there, but they are all sewn in. She is shiny and holographic, and I have already pinned them back in place where they go, so now I'm going to actually sew the top together. Top is all sewn together aside from the zipper in the back, which you can't even see because my hair is covering it right now. And then I will have to repeat my same cutting of the squares on the skirt, lining it with the green vinyl. It's a whole thing. It's been about 3 hours of me just working on the top today, aside from the work I did on the skirt this morning, so like it's been a lot. Alright, today's objective is to take the skirt and cut out all the square panels and lay the vinyl underneath, just like I did with the top. I've unpinned and repinned this skirt like 27 times, making adjustments so that the waistband would actually be my waist size, but the bottom would be flared out enough to do the bouncy thing. And I think I finally got it to a point where I like it, but now I have to make sure to not mess up cutting the squares out. I started with this first panel that's closest to me and sewed around each one, and then as I went on, the middle one here is like half sewed, half hot glued, and this last one's all hot glued. And usually the first one's kind of wrinkly and then the last one's like super flat. So I'm gonna change my method. I'm not gonna sew around each square. I'm actually gonna hot glue them all down because the fabric is being finicky and it's actually easier for it to be hot glued and also looks better. So that's 3 panels of the skirt done so far. I'm gonna have to do 4 more. So my boots came in for Anne Boleyn today. I ordered these on Amazon like 2 weeks ago and they finally got in. They are a little taller than my K. Howard boots. I don't have the fasteners on them, but they'll work for what I need them for. I had the forethought to buy my rhinestones and then sort them out by color a couple weeks ago, so here they are, my various plastic bags. So going through my scraps of fabric, I actually found these 2 little semicircles. I don't remember where I cut them from, but I realized they're just about the perfect size for me to put around my shoulder, right there, to start off the sleeve pieces. So I cut them to be slightly more identical, and now I'm going to pin them onto my top. So here's one of my little shoulder pieces all sewn together. It is the little semicircle I showed you guys earlier, and what I basically did was take a piece of the vinyl and then 2 pieces of the pleather octagon shape and putting them down with either hot glue or fabric glue depending on whatever I have on hand, because I've noticed that sewing is not working with this material because it's very slippery and likes to just go wherever it wants. So I do that double-sided. So these are the 3 pieces that I haven't finished yet. These are the ones I have finished, and I'm just going to sew them onto here and then sew these half pieces back on to the top. Okay, so I kind of on purpose, but also kind of accidentally did these sleeves wrong in multiple ways. Some of them were intentional, some of them weren't, so I'll show you what I did. First off, it's only 3 little loopies instead of 5 because mine are thicker, and that's only because I made the squares on the top a little smaller than I would have wanted them to be, and so the green on the top doesn't pop as much. So I wanted to put a little more green on wider spaces, so I made these little arm loopies wider, but then that makes it so that instead of fitting 5 of them that are this size, I can only fit 3 that are this wider part. And this middle one, I made it way too long and it stuck out like crazy over my shoulder. So what I did was cut it down the middle and then turn and loop it and then re-sew. And by sew, I mean I hot glued / gorilla glued because I couldn't get needle through this fabric because it's way too thick. So I made this weird little like double loop and then a single loop and a single loop. It looks weird. It's not accurate to the actual costume, but I like it. But now I have to replicate my mistakes on the other side. And you know what? If your sewing machine can't handle going through 6 layers of leather, just get some industrial glue and some kitchen clips and let that finish the job. So I literally just like went to my mom's crafting and tool closet and found some industrial strength glue that needs a 24-hour setting period, so I legit just glued it down and then took some clips from my kitchen and I'm holding it in place. And that will be the last thing I have to do before finishing the zipper and the studs, and then this top will be complete. So now that the basic structure is done, I decided to go and take some pictures of the overall costume, but I ran into a little dilemma of my shoes not wanting to cooperate with me. I definitely know my Catherine Howard boots did not shed this much. I walked around a good amount in them and I used the same method of hot gluing the rhinestones on. So I think it's just the material of these shoes. All of that sorting out the beads and individually placing them into the pattern and gluing them down. Yeah, that was 2 hours wasted. So love that for me. Sometimes stuff happens. Sometimes you sew something wrong or make it too big and you have to improvise little weird loopy things. Sometimes all your rhinestones fall off your shoes and you just have to deal with it. So I got my zippers today and I knew that I wouldn't be able to tell exactly where the top was going to fall in terms of like how high or low it would be on my stomach until I got the zippers and actually fully put it on rather than holding it in place with safety pins. So I had the zippers on, including the skirt and the top, and I saw that the little loopies in the bottom were falling, like overlapping the skirt, and I want my stomach to show a little bit so I can like show the mesh bodysuit under, so I just kind of snipped the bottoms off my loopies because you know this is an impulsive project and we're just kind of going along with it as we see fit. So I'm going to have to seal these shut. Again, fabric glue is most likely what I want to do with that. But today I also, along with my zippers, bought these silver studs that'll go on here, as well as a new type of adhesive. So today's objective is going to be shoes, the sequel, and the studs. And here I stand with my blank canvases, my symbolic art, and my weapon of choice. I'm going to need you all to pray for my sanity because after the hours it's going to take me to bedazzle all of this, I don't think I'll have any left. So here's one complete, here's one about halfway there, and so far it does seem like my new glue is actually working. It does need up to 72 hours to set, so I'm not going to mess with these too much, but I have a good feeling it'll be permanent this time, so we're going to keep our fingers crossed. Also, in case anyone cares, I've moved on from my Mega 6 playlist because it was driving me insane, and now I am marathoning Sunny with a Chance on Disney+. Just me letting you all in on my horrible taste in media as I slowly drive myself insane, putting these studs in one at a time. And just for reference, and the time it took me to say that one sentence, I did one stud. So you can imagine, just multiply like 40-ish seconds by 240, and that'll be the time I spent today just on studs. You know, I've got to say, my favorite part about filming in my cosplay outside in public is when my neighbors hear me and then stare out their windows to watch me and don't stop watching me for extended periods of time. And so you guys are all aware, shoes, the squeak roll worked out, and I have not lost a single rhinestone. I've been out here for about 20 minutes. So far so good. Here's a little head to toe. A bit more. So I had to fly on an airplane and put my entire bowling costume in my checked bag, hoping that nothing would happen and that I would just get off scot-free and that nothing that I've spent a total of like 5 hours on would get damaged, but we can't have nice things. So I guess sometime this week I'm gonna get started on Shoes 3 Tokyo Drift. So I never finished Howard's choker whenever I was making her costume, but I did start on it, and I have two different little Ks, one with light pink rhinestones, one with dark pink rhinestones. Never attached them to anything, they're just kind of sitting here. And I tried to go to Michael's today and find a B so I could start on Boleyn's, but the smallest one I could find, size comparison, is this. So a little bigger than I thought it would be. Like the K is pretty much perfectly sized, but the B is kind of massive. I'm gonna go with it now because it was 99 cents, so I might as well just take the Macklemore philosophy on life there. So I made the Bowline Choker with my gigantic B, and then I went back to the craft store and found smaller Bs and just bedazzled them. This is one of the other Ks I had for reference, so smaller, and it's bigger. So like if I could get something right in the middle of this size, it'd be perfect, but again, we can't have nice things, so we're just gonna work with it. Oh, and by the way, I was looking through my bag to see if I could find the rhinestones that fell off of these shoes, and they're literally missing, so I'm just gonna go cry in a corner for a little while because I really do not want to have to repurchase these. She's just hanging out in my closet over there, waiting for me to eventually finish all of her accessories. Alright, today's project is Anne Boleyn's Greensleeves. I have this green fabric here that pretty closely matches the fabric I used on the top and skirt. I have this black mesh, which is a little thinner than I needed it to be, so I'm doubling it up. It's 4 layers of it here. On top, this is black stretchy swim fabric that I'm going to use on the back side of it so it can be stretchy and go over my wrist and be a tight fit. So I'm going to sew the mesh on top of the green and then put the black and the green on top of each other So then it'll be black on the bottom side, green on the top side, put the studs across it, and then it'll be a green sleeve, and I'll do that on the other side as well. And if you're new to crafting and sewing and you want to buy a sewing machine to kind of get practice, don't buy a cheap one, because you might start working on your very first project or costume and it may not be going as well as you'd hope, and you might be thinking, oh man, I'm really bad at sewing. No you're not. It's just that cheap sewing machines are the devil, and they're awful at their jobs, and it makes you think that it's bad because you're bad, but you're not. You're probably not. You probably have lots of talent inside of you, but cheap sewing machines will convince you that you are horrible because they don't work. Almost to prove my point, I got about this far with the cheap sewing machine, sewed that much, and then it stopped working. So I'm just gonna sew these by hand because, again, they're very small pieces and they'd be pretty easy to finish. Now, after I've thrown on my giant choker, put on my armbands, bedazzled a microphone, and thrown some space buns in my hair, I can officially consider my Bowline cosplay complete. Like I said, this is literally the most difficult, insane thing I've ever tried to do cosplay-wise. I've never worked with leather before. I've never had so many individual little pieces, all the studs, all the rhinestones. Gosh, these shoes were a nightmare, but I did it, and now I'm ready to go get beheaded, I guess. And even then, I still have a few things left to do. Like, I haven't put the studs on my arms yet. I don't have my spikes for my buns. I could also still do a layer of studs on the bottom of my skirt. So there's plenty of progress still to be made on this costume. So just for reference, I started doing my research for this costume on April 23rd, and today is June 7th. So that's just under 2 months and 21 hours of work time on this costume. That work time does not include the amount of time I took researching, the amount of shopping hours I did. Also, I did not include the amount of money I spent because it's quite a lot, and I still have to organize all my receipts and figure out exactly what that number is, but it is in the hundreds. A project like this is not for the faint of heart or faint of wallet. So if you are looking to make an Boleyn cosplay, or if you just wanted to see the process of how I made mine, I hope this video helped you out and entertained you a little bit. I do a lot more cosplay content on my Instagram, is at the.literary.princess on Instagram, though I will make more cosplay related videos on here if you guys like this, so let me know what you think. And now I'm gonna dance around in this in my living room because I still have nowhere to go because we're still in quarantine. So thank you guys all so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video.